Okay, so welcome everyone to our study podcast series. And today we have Shreya from Singapore who will be sharing her journey. So, welcome Shreya to our podcast.
Thank you for having me here.
So, let me get started with our questions, discussion points that we have been communicating. So, the very first question I have is how did you decide to go abroad for studies?
When I decided this, my main motivation was to get to know other cultures and how we can operate together, even despite our different cultures, how we can incorporate that into professional situations. And I also wanted an entire Asia based perspective of my professional career. So that's why I decided to join this program, which provided me, first of all, an Asia based perspective of all markets, as well as it also helped me connect with other people who are from diverse backgrounds. Apart from that, I think it was also great for me to advance my career into other markets beyond India. So it also gave me a platform to understand that. So I think these were my main motivations. Apart from that, I also think that sorry. Apart from that, I also wanted to join this program because it was quite interesting the way they marketed themselves and they presented themselves to me. I found myself relating to the program as well as the university. That's why I decided to go for this university and enrolled in it.
So, how was the selection of the college and the document visa process for the
The
final selection?
selection, the selection process was quite smooth. So when I applied first, I had to give my essays, my motivations for joining, statement of purpose, etc., on the form itself. I also had to provide the details of my references so that they can give their recommendations at their time. So whatever was convenient to them. Also had to add my passport details. Once that was over, I decided to opt for the university's entrance exam instead of GMAT. So I had to give my details for that, and I was given a stipulated time during which I had to complete the test. Once the test was done within a week, they gave me the time slot details for interview process. And once I booked my desired time slot and the interview was over, within a week or two, I got my acceptance letter, after which I started the visa process. So, even though the visa process was a bit complex as everything was new and there were a lot of documents that I didn't have at that point, like my medical records, I had to do a few tests in order for to get the visa process in place. So, despite that, it was quite convenient, and I was doing the visa process for almost 2 months, it simultaneously with my college matriculation. So even though it was a bit overwhelming at times because there were a lot of documents, I made that process easier for myself by dividing the documents into two parts. One was for all the documents related to matriculation, and another one was everything related to visa. So that made it easier, and I had two separate folders for that so that nothing would get mixed up. And even after this, I had all the copies stored in my devices. It was in my phone and laptop because most of the conversations that I was having, it was online. So that helped me to refer to anything, even if I didn't have it on my person. So I think this was quite essential.
Sure, sure. And let's say your hometown versus Singapore, how was that transition happening? So let's say maybe your hometown to maybe a college you studied in a different city or the initial schooling, let's say, and then you moved to Singapore. How was those transitions in your life affected you?
At first, the first week I arrived here, it was very busy. Like I was very complicated and busy. So what happened was I had to register for my new cell phone SIM. I also had to register for a bank account and get all the documents related to that. I was also doing my matriculation at the same time. So that additionally, I also had the COVID vaccines, which I had to get registered with the Singapore government. So it was quite complicated. At that time, I was having conversations with the other peers of mine, which were in the same cohort as me. So that was very helpful. So we had a group on WhatsApp, which was very helpful. And apart from that, I discovered that the culture is quite different than I could have imagined. So the prices here are very high. So at the beginning of me arriving here, I found myself converting everything from Singapore dollars to Indian dollars, like an Indian rupee, sorry. That was one major transition that I had to change. I had to make sure that I was keeping track of all my expenses. Apart from that, I also had to make sure that the climate here was quite suitable for me since the heat here is way higher than what I'm usually used to. And apart from that, I got to experience lot more new things. One major example that I give for anyone that asks what different here as compared to India is the example of cuisines. I have had ton of varieties in cuisines. Most of the cuisines from all over countries in Asia can be found here. I've tried many new things. And there's also many Indian restaurants here, which are usually my go to comfort food. So that's something I also go and relish in. So in case I feel homesick.
And what was the like the living standard, like the apartment, etc., that you changed, let's say India versus here?
I would say the apartment costs here are quite high, even though. But if you find someone that you're willing to share with, then it does become quite affordable. There are many other resources for you to enter into. There's like a group called Yoha, which is renting out flats. There's flats that are meant for especially students that are traveling from abroad, which makes it quite convenient as it is quite cheaper and there are also utilities included. So that is something that students can take advantage of.
What difference do you see in the education standard of, let's say, India versus Singapore that you have been experiencing?
Right. The first difference I found that the education here is based more on application of the concepts. It's more practical as compared to India. So when I did my bachelor's in India, most of the questions in exam for they were mainly related to the concept. But when I gave my exam here in Singapore for my program, I found that a majority of the questions were based on how to apply the concept that we had previously learned in class, as opposed to actually knowing the concept. This I find it's quite important for a student to know because most of the things that we learn in business school or any other school, we need to apply it and we need to know how to apply it in other situations. So that I find is quite interesting. I also found that a lot of stress is given to group projects more than individual projects. There's also a peer evaluation that is given. For example, I let's say I didn't do anything for the group project. In that case, I would be graded according to my contribution, which I find is another thing which is very important to students who strive to work hard and give more to the projects than others. Another thing is my university encourages class participation so that the classes are two-way communication instead of the student just listening, which I found quite encouraging as I get to speak a lot more and give my opinions in front of the class. So there are also many discussions and debates. There are also classes that I find are quite helpful as they're specifically games and simulation based classes. So that is like experiencing a part of real world in the class itself. So that has also been quite helpful for me.
Sounds good. And what's your class size that you are having right now or you had initially?
When I joined, my class size was around 100, 120, something like that. But now another batch of the Jan cohort, they have joined us. So the class size is a lot bigger than before. But the graduation time would be different. So we would be graduating before them. So it changes on which time of the year or which cohort you are from.
So around 100 plus kind of people
Right.
in each class, roughly. That can vary from spring or fall semester, etc. And life in general in Singapore, like the way it's cleaned, the way it's a small island has created its own brand in terms of lot of things. Were you like very impressed by how Singapore manages itself being a small island or a group of islands? Is that something you noticed?
I was quite impressed by it. The infrastructure here is great. You can see a lot of tourists, and there are a lot of people you can talk to, get in touch. The people here are great. And one experience personally I had heard about someone's experience, so which made me feel like the infrastructure here is quite impressive, more than I could have imagined. So one person, they once told me they had been here before and they had been living here for quite some time. One day they were going to work and they saw that a road was closed. So what the government did was they built a temporary bridge so that the road that was closed wouldn't disrupt the transportation. And after some days, after the road was completed, then the temporary bridge, it was gone. So they dismantled it, which I find is quite impressive. It is very impressive in terms of technology as well as the management aspect of it. That is one of the major things I've noticed.
You did your bachelor's like of 3 years, right? So
Yeah.
we can see from LinkedIn profile from University of Mumbai. And so then you joined this master's in management. So does SMU have a rule of 3 year or 4 year degree which they consider for various programs, or its 3 year degree is considered good enough to pursue all the master's course otherwise?
Most of the times they do not consider, uh, I mean, it is considered a major part what degree or what field you are from. Even though your background does matter, it wouldn't matter as much as your aptitude or what potential you bring to the table. They want people from diverse fields because diversity will help other people learn, the students learn, as well as the people who teach them. They would also be in contact with a lot more new people. So their perspective is that they want people who are a good fit for their program, are a good fit for their university, and people from diverse backgrounds, as well as people who have done various degrees in different fields.
Are you also in touch with the people who are doing bachelor's from your college, your university, or not so much?
I am in touch with some people who have been in the university with me.
Mhm.
So I have been talking to them occasionally, even though not as much contact as I would like, but still we talk sometimes.
So how do you see this bachelor versus masters, let's say from SMU, as a choice for a lot of other aspirants, study abroad aspirants?
I think it would help them if they have a particular goal in mind. So if their major aim is to, let's say, improve them skills and they want to pursue ahead into the corporate world, it would be a good platform for them, but only if they find it beneficial, if they are a good fit for the university. But if they think personally that they're not a good fit for the university, in that case I think this program might not be suited to them. So it depends on your qualifications, it depends on your aptitude as well as your personality to some extent, I believe.
Sure. And what's your future goals? Like what's in your mind after a few years from now?
Right. So my future goals, for the short term at least, I am thinking of gaining new skills. That's my main aim. I'm trying to go into the field of sustainable finance and operations. So I want to gather as many skills as possible related to that. In the long term, I think I would like to specialize more in the niche and get on the ropes with that.
Sure, sure. And what advice would you give to the youngsters who are the aspirants right now, who wish to study somewhere abroad, let's say?
So the main thing is, it can be quite overwhelming to go through everything together. So there's applications, then we have interviews and other assessment centers. So the main thing is, don't lose your calm. You are quite good at what you do. Make sure you know everything, brush up on all your skills. Another major thing is, if you're giving any interviews from your home which are online, especially interviews or other events like that, in that case, make sure that you align the time zones. So make sure that the time zones are correct and you don't miss anything important. Aside from that, I would say just be yourself in the applications. Make sure you take care of all the proper processes. Keep in mind all the processes and make sure you follow them to the T. And I would wish you all the best for your journey ahead.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you very much for your time. We'll now end our podcast with you, and hopefully you achieve your goals. And listening to this podcast, some of your juniors can be quite inspired and get some knowledge from you. So thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.